In this class, we are going to have the principal features of Jainism. We have seen what is Jainism means and the importance of that, or Jinas or victors and Tirthankaras, certain terms we have already heard about. Now, what is the principles of Jainism? There are a few. For example, religious tolerance is one of those. In Jainism, religious tolerance, ethical purity, harmony between self and one's environment, spiritual contentment. Then, along with other religions or systems, it prescribes a path of liberation or moksha, which consists of three jewels, Trinity or Ratnatraya of Jainism. And those three, or the Trinity, Ratnatraya, are right perception, Samyak Darshana, right knowledge, Samyak Jnana, and right conduct, Samyak Chaitriya. So these three aspects are to be in a person, that is always there, so that leads to the real liberation. Right perception creates an awareness of reality or truth. So right perception leading to right knowledge, that is the Ratnatraya is that, right perception, right knowledge and right conduct. Right perception creates an awareness of reality or truth. Right knowledge impels the person to proper action, and proper conduct leads him to attainment of the total freedom. So three things interdependent or following from one to reading from one to the other. The right perception, Samyak Darshana, right knowledge, Samyak Jnana, and right conduct, Samyak Chaitriya. And thus it leads you to the perfect freedom. They must coexist in a person if one is to make any progress on the path of liberation. So liberation is the ultimate goal. As in every religion we will find, what is ultimate goal? You want to be free. That is the freedom, moksha, mukti, nirvana. All these are the aspects which are the different terms which are used in the religion or the philosophy. Right perception, Samyak Darshana. Right perception consists in seeing the true nature of every substance of the universe. So in Jainism we can see that every living organism is endowed with a soul, and therefore you have to have respect to every living organism in the same status. The stage or the jiva, that is soul that is enshrined in the living organism, is equal, be it in the human being, be it in the plant life, be it in the animal, as long as they are a jiva to be respected. Therefore, we can see in Jainism a deeper appreciation or deeper insistence on total ahimsa. So that is one of the important principles on which they hold, that is total ahimsa to be practiced. So right perception, Samyak Darshana, that is seeing the true nature of every substances of the universe. Jainism advocates that one should first try to know, comprehend and understand the nature of reality. So what is the nature of reality? One should try to know, comprehend and understand. One, that is the true nature of reality, one's own self, religious goal and the path. One should analyze it, examine it, test it and verify it. Then, if satisfied, be convinced of its truth and efficacy. So there is nothing to be taken for granted. So you are a person who is going to really test the veracity of the path, the system, the reality and all that. You need to try it on. That means the right perception to be there. Samyak Darshana. Darshana in the Sanskrit word for that is the perception is not mere seeing, it's much more than that. It has got deeper implication, looking into oneself, that is Darshana. So here the right perception will mean that one should analyze the nature, the universe, the substance, what you find the substance of the universe. Then first you should try to know it, comprehend, and then understand the nature of reality, one's own self, religious goal, and the path. That's about the perception. So first important thing is to have the right perception. And then that will lead you to the right knowledge. When the perception, when you are able to see clearly what the truth about it, then right perception or faith makes us to realize the reality of life and the seriousness of our purpose of life. That's the right knowledge, Samyak Jnana. Right knowledge is the true, correct, proper and relevant knowledge of the reality and tattvas. So that is from the right perception you are moving to the right knowledge. Right knowledge that is about the reality and tattvas. Mainly one has to know the following about the reality. 6 universal entities are there, that is substances: soul, matter, motion, rest, space and time. So 5 substances or the 6 universal entities or substances: soul, matter, motion, rest, space and time. 9 tattvas or principles, that is jiva, ajiva, asrava, bandh, punya, paba, samvara, nirjana and moksha. So these are those which are leading you or giving you the chance to, from the right perception to the right knowledge. So you come little more closer to. And this, knowing these 6 universal entities and the 9 tattvas that help you, or the philosophically this is known as the theory of non-absolutism or anekantavada, and calls for an attitude of openness. Our limitations of knowledge dictate a style of relativity. The style of sthayivada allows no room for assertions. This Jain theory of the right contact and the right samyak chaitriya. So philosophically this is known as that is anekantavada. That means so many. It's not sthayivada. That means already fixed as such. It is not. The Jain theory is anekantavada and not sthayivada. From the right knowledge you are led to the right contact. So perception, knowledge and contact. Proper, correct and appropriate and truly natural contact of the living being is known as right contact. So right perception, right knowledge and right contact. The main purpose for a human being is to free himself from attachment, that is raga, and aversion, dvesha. So these two qualities that is going to decide more on the person. That is to be free from all impure activities of the thought, word and deed. This will attain the state of perfect equanimity. So what Jainism is advocating is for that. From your right perception, you gain the right knowledge. And the right knowledge to right contact how you should live your life. And this Ratnatraya or this 3 aspects, the 3 jewels, leads you into perfect liberation. So that's what Jainism tells, what is about your, how to free yourself from these 2, the attachment of that raga and aversion, dvesha. This creates the difficulties for you, and when you are able to free from all impure activities of thought, word and deed, then you will attain the state of perfect equanimity, and that is going to be the stage of freedom. For practical purposes, right conduct comprises ethical codes, rules and disciplines which an aspirant is required to pursue for the ultimate freedom. So what is the path that leads you to the ultimate freedom? So there are some practical purposes. For practical purposes, right conduct comprises of ethical codes, rules and disciplines which an aspirant is required to pursue for the ultimate freedom. This resolves into taking the 5 vows of an ascetic or a householder. So there are 2 groups here in Jainism, the ascetic, and they are also divided into 2, the monks and the nuns, and then the householder or the lay persons who take also different vows. So Mahavrata and Anuvrata, 2 types taken. Mahavrata is taken by the Jain monks and nuns, and Anuvrata, that is in comparison to Mahavrata, less in its what's the following, or less in its seriousness, but at the same time they are asked to follow these vratas, that's called the Anuvrata. In its seriousness and content perhaps a little lower, or the in its austerity, from the austere part of it, Mahavrata's more stern or stringent rules and regulations are there, whereas Anuvrata, it is little less in its ascetic practices. So this resolves into taking the 5 vows of ascetic or the householder. So there are 5 Mahavratas, that is ahimsa, that is non-violence, satya, truth, then achoriya, that is non-stealing, brahmacharya, chastity, aparigraha, non-possession, non-attachment. They are the 5. That is Mahavrata. Non-violence, truth, non-stealing, chastity and non-possession or non-attachment to possessions. So these 5 are taken by the monks and the nuns. Right faith, right knowledge are required for right conduct and are all interdependent. So one to the other, right perception, right knowledge and right conduct. And this perception and knowledge leading you to contact, I mean it's a real life of yours, without or free from all raga and dvesha, that means of attachment and aversion. So these 2 qualities are those which makes your life pin down to certain things. If you have that attachment, that is raga, or the dvesha, that is aversion to certain things, these are going to play a great role in your life, and that will play up in every type of your conduct as well. Therefore, to be free from all impure activities of thought, word and deed, that will lead you to that freedom or the equanimity of the mind. Now we have said there are 2 major groups in Jainism. They are the Digambaras and Shvetambaras, the sky-clad and the white-clothed monks, or the laity also. They also do the same. They are distinguished by that. So differences between the 2 groups. What are the major distinctions we can find in them or the differences for them? Both group accept basically Jain philosophy and the 5 basic vows. So Mahavratas are accepted by both the groups, by the Digambaras as well as Shvetambaras. The philosophical differences between these groups mostly affect monks and nuns or very pious one. So these are going to, that a major difference is going to be in that section only, that is regarding the monks and nuns and very pious people. For the lay person, ordinary person, the householder, not much of difference is going to be there. So differences between Shvetambara and Digambaras based on the scripture. So where do they differ with regard to the scripture? Digambaras and Shvetambaras disagree as to which book constitute Jain scripture. So there is a difference between them with regard to which books constitute the scripture. So Digambaras will take one stand and the Shvetambaras on the other stand. According to Digambaras, all the major works of Jain, that is writing or what had been collected, was lost during the war. That was no more available. So nothing was left. Whereas Shvetambaras will say that they were all or retained and it is there. So the main difference between these two groups based on the scripture, Digambaras and Shvetambaras disagree as to which books constitute the scripture for them. Then the issue regarding the women. In both the groups there are monks and nuns. So for Digambaras, believe that women cannot achieve liberation without first being born as a man. So that is the stand of Digambaras. So in Digambara there is no salvation for women as such, because unless they are reborn as a man, only then there is a chance for them for the liberation. This is because women cannot live truly ascetic life because they have to possess clothes, since it is impractical for women to live naked. So Digambaras, they are nude. They did not even wear cloth, showing that they are renouncing even that possession of a piece of cloth over them to cover the nakedness. Not even that they want. So showing total renunciation of any possession. So one of the Mahavrata they take is a non-attachment to possessions. So not even cloth. So most of the Digambara group, especially the monks, you will see them going naked. So they don't put on that. That's why they are called the sky clad. Only sky is above them, nothing, no piece of cloth will be over them. So according to Digambaras, women cannot anyway attain liberation because they cannot practice the nudity. So impractical for them to live naked. Women are intrinsically harmful according to the Digambara school of thought. So for them, they have to be reborn as man in order to attain liberation. Whereas for Shvetambara, they have no problem of that. Then Digambaras believe that the Jainas have no body functions, live without food, do not act in the world. That is the understanding of Digambara. Who are the Jainas or the victors or the Tirthankaras? They have no body functions, live without food. So they do not act in the world. Digambara monks live completely naked. This is because Digambara believe that one can only lead a life of true monk. This is because Digambaras believe that one can only lead the life of a true monk by having no worldly possessions. So a true Digambara monk live completely naked because that is one of the Mahavrata they pronounce, that is a non-possession of any earthly good. And even that cloth also is negated. By demonstrating indifference to earthly emotions such as shame, nuns of both groups are clothed. So here, in both groups we will find monks and nuns, but nuns in both groups, they are clothed. Only in Dikambara school of thought, the men, they are totally nude, and they profess that only by total negation of the worldly good, they will be able to reach or attain the moksha or the liberation. Digambara monks are not allowed any possession, not even the begging bowl, and so can only receive gifts in their cupped hands, only so much. What is required for them for a day's sustenance, only what is permitted for them. So they do not work, they do not go, only receive, not even begging. They don't have a begging bowl, no cloth, nothing. They go nude and they live purely on the alms of others. And that also only so much, that's a cupped hand. They can receive only so much, not more than that. That is for that times or that day's sustenance only, nothing to preserve for the next day. So they have to live purely on what they are going to have that day. So every day it's going to be a day that is to be depending on the goodwill of the others, and not, they are not going to possess anything or preserve something for the next day or the time to come or in time of need or want, nothing of that sort. They are professing a, that is one of the Mahavrita they are taking, telling that they will not possess anything. So Digambaras, not even the clothes, they go totally nude, not the nuns. Shvetambara monks, that is white-clad monks. So the two sects are Digambaras and Shvetambaras. And Shvetambara monks can have a few possessions: simple white clothing, begging bowl, a brush to remove insects from their path, books and writing materials. So this can be the possession of a Shvetambara monk or a nun. So these two groups, which with some of the differences we are trying to find, what makes them the different from one another. One is about the scripture, there is a difference of opinion. Then with regard to the women, for Digambaras, women have no chance of salvation unless they are born as man or reborn as man. And then both the groups, their women or the nuns are clothed, whereas in Digambara, they renounce even the piece of cloth over them, telling that they are totally renounced of the world, nothing attached to them. So that is the pure renunciation which they want to profess and live. And they are not allowed to have any begging bowl, no cloth, and no possession at all. And what they are allowed to receive is only something which the devotees or the other people generously give, and that also only for that time with the cupped hand. In a cupped hand, how much it will be? Only so much they are allowed to receive, nothing more. So no preserving things for tomorrow as such. That is not in the Digambara school. But Shvetambara monks, they can have some possession. Their cloth piece, that is a pure, simple white clothing, a begging bowl, and a brush to sweep in front of them the path, and books for writing materials. So these things, so what is the differentiation between them? These two groups based on certain things: scripture, women, and then the genus, the understanding, who is a Jina or a victor, the understanding of the Digambaras and the Shvetambaras. Then what about images? So there is some difference which is placed there. The images. Digambara images for Tirthankaras have downcast eyes, all the images which you find in the Dikambara school of philosophy, all the figures or the images are with the downcast eyes. Shvetambara image is having prominent staring eyes. They look straight into you, whereas the Digambaras always with the downcast eyes. Digambara images are plain and always carved as naked figures. Shvetambara images are richly decorated. So based on the image, the difference we can find. The scripture, women, the understanding of Jina or who is a victor or a Tirthangara, and then based on the image. The images of the Digambaras, it is with the downcast and very plain and always pointed or exhibited as the naked figures. And whereas the Shvetambara images are richly or decorated. Then from the point of view of worship, what's the difference between these two groups? Worship, Digambara's worship is simpler than Shvetambara worship. So Digambaras, in that sense, so the worship is very, very simple in its mode, whereas than that of the Shvetambara. Then Jain texts, as we have said about the scripture. The text containing the teachings of Mahavira are called agamas and are the canonical literature, the scriptures of Shvetambara Jainism. So the writings of Mahavira, that is called agamas, are the canonical literature of the scriptures of Shvetambara Jainism. Mahavira's disciples compiled his works into text or sutras and memorized them to pass on to future generations. That is what the Shvetambaras have done. Mahavira's disciples compiled his words into text and sutras and memorized them to pass on to future generations. The text, this is in Digambaras. That means the stricter order or the group which is following very strictly, not possessing anything. What they were doing, Mahavira's disciples compiled his words and texts or sutras and memorized them to pass on to future generations. And why memorizing? The text had to be memorized since Jain monks and nuns were not allowed to possess religious books as part of their vow of non-accusation nor they were allowed to write. So the only way to preserve the scripture was to learn by heart the sutras and the text by heart. And that is by the Digambara school of thought. Jain theology developed after Mahavira thought through the teachings of particularly learned monks. These teachings too had to be memorized, and so the amount that the monks had to remember steadily increased. And this was going to be very tedious process of learning by heart, because by the fact that they were not allowed to possess the books or write, that's the Digambara school of thought. So then the only way for them was to really memorize them, and neither they were allowed to write or possess. So fully detached from this world. The laws of scriptures. So an unfortunate event happened that unfortunately many of the original things of Mahavira has been lost. As centuries passed, some of the texts were forgotten and others were misremembered. The distortion of the original text caused much concern for the Jains. So this is what happened. In the course of time, things were lost and then misrepresented or misremembered. You can't all the time exactly remember. And when a person gets old, all the more, what he had memorized in his younger days need not come automatically of good use when your memory is aged. Then came a particular disruption in 350 BCE when a famine killed off many Jain monks and with them the memory of the Jain texts also. So that was another big loss. So first of all, they had that idea that nothing is to be possessed, the one of the Mahavratas, and really following that, they were learning by heart the text and sutras of Mahavira. And then what happened? In the course of time, things to be memorized doubled. That became very tedious process. And those of who had memorized it, as they become old, then they were not able to remember everything. That on the one part, and on the other side, that is in 350 BCE, a famine killed so many. And along with the many Jain monks, and with them the memory of the many Jain texts. So that's a loss of scripture. The Digambara sect believed that during this famine, all the Angamas were lost. The Shvetambara sect believed that the majority of these texts survived. So that is one of the main difference based on the scripture, the difference between the Digambaras and Shvetambaras. So the Digambaras believe that during this famine, as many of the Digambara monks also died along with that plague, and therefore with that their memory and the text, everything gone. And so many texts lost already. Unfortunately, many of the original teachings of Mahavira had been lost. And as centuries passed, some of the texts were forgotten. So not all the texts they could remember or learn by heart, and some were forgotten and others were misremembered. So not all the time the memory was quite good enough. The distortion of the original text caused much concern for the Jains. So this had been one of the main problem with them. So the Digambara sect believed, that means adding to that came the famine in 350 BCE, and practically so many of them also died along with. So with that their memory and the text gone. So Digambaras believe that with that famine, that original text that was called as Angamas, they were all lost. But the Shvetambara believe that most of them were retained and or preserved. So that becomes the main point of difference between the two groups. The Digambaras believe that the original text, that is called the Angamas, were lost during the famine, whereas the Shvetambara sect believed that the majority of the text survived. This is one of the most important differences between the two groups of Jainism, and it means that Jain texts have very different roles for the two groups, for the Digambaras as well as for the Shvetambaras. Both sects agree that a group of texts called Purvas were lost in the famine. So to that extent there is some agreement. Certain portion of the text were lost, that both the Digambaras and Shvetambaras they agree. But Shvetambara believe that most of the texts were preserved, and that plays a greater role for the Shvetambaras. Preservation of the scriptures. After the famine, monks and nuns of a Shvetambara sect held several conferences to preserve the most important Jain text. Unsurprisingly, there were many arguments about which texts were authentic, and different subsects still differ over this. So that was one of the thing which the Shvetambaras did. Soon after the famine, they held so many conferences, meetings and all that in order to preserve the most important Jain texts. Unsurprisingly, there were many arguments about which text was authentic, and still there is difference. And in the sub-sect, they also differ on account of that. Now we are trying to see the differences in the two groups, the major groups, the Digambaras and Shvetambara. So we have seen on different aspects. For example, we saw with regard to the scripture, the women, then their idea about the Jina, so the victors, the very name, and then we have the practice of them, that is the images, worship, then with regard to the Jain text, which is preserved now or what is lost and all that. Now with regard to the two groups in the, or the three groups in the two sect or the major sect, that is the monks, nuns and the laypersons. So 12 vows of the layperson. The 5 great vows, they are taken by, or the Mahavratas can be adopted by monks who are very keen about the uplift of their souls and ready to sacrifice all worldly enjoyments and family ties. So Mahavratas are observed and taken by monks and nuns, not the other group, that means not the lay persons. For them it is Anuvrata that is given. For those who want to remain in family life and for whom complete avoidance of 5 principal sins are difficult, Jain's ethics specifies the following 12 vows to be carried out by a householder. So in comparison to that of the vows, Mahavratas taken by both the groups, that is the Digambaras and Shvetambara, what is given to the people, that is the 12 vows to be taken by a householder. Of the 12 vows, the first 5 are the main vows of limited nature, that is Anuvratas. They are somewhat easier in comparison to the great vows of Mahavratas. The great vows are for the monks. The next 3 vows are known as merit vows or Gunavratas, so called because they enhance the purity. They enhance and purify the effect of 5 main vows and raise their value manifold. It also governs the external conduct of an individual. So for a householder, what a Jain householder has to do, that is to fulfill the 12 vows. The last 4 are called disciplinary vows, that is Shiksha Vratas. They are intended to encourage the person in the performance of their religious duties. They reflect the purity of one's heart. They govern one's internal life and expressed in a life that is marked by charity. They are preparatory to the disciplinary life of an ascetic's life. 3 merit gunas, that is Gunavratas, are and 4 disciplinary vows, that is Shiksha Vratas, together are known as 7 vows of the virtuous conduct. So 3 plus 4, that is the 7 vows together are known as 7 vows of virtuous conduct. So we can see that the 3 jewels of Jainism, that is right perception, right knowledge and right conduct. So perception leading to knowledge and knowledge leading to the conduct. The real test comes in your living, the conduct. So that is going to be, and all these 3 has to be in a person leading one to the real path of liberation. So here for the monks and the nuns there is Mahavrata, 5 vratas are there, austere practices of that. Whereas for the lay person, the householder, it is Anuvratas, less in its austerity, and they are asked to follow that. Along with that, we have the 3 merit vows and the disciplinary 4 disciplinary vows, or Gunavratas and Shiksha Vratas. Together they are known as the 7 vows of virtuous conduct. So always the insistence is going to be on the how you conduct yourself or how do you live. The layperson should be very careful while observing the following, these limited vows. These vows, being limited or restricted vows, may still leave great scope for the commitment of sin and possession of property. So there is a warning for everyone. That is, there is a kind of, there is also insistence on non-possession. One of the vritas to be taken, be it the nuns or the monks or the nuns or the layperson, vows remain, but only in the severity there is a difference. And therefore, 5 main vows limited nature of anuvratas, what is advocated for the householder. So what is the 5 main vows of limited nature? Other one is mahavratas, which the monks and the nuns are to practice. So here the 5 main vows of limited nature called anuvratas. Non-violent anuvrat, ahimsa anuvrat, that is stula pranayat viranam, that is non-violent anuvrat. So we have seen in the other one, that is mahavrata, that is non-violence is that of total ahimsa, that is to be practiced by a monk or a nun. Here non-violent anuvrat, then truthfulness anuvrat, satya anuvrat, then non-stealing anuvrat, or that is acharya anuvrat, chastity anuvrat, brahmacharya anuvrat, then non-attachment anuvrat, aparigraha anuvrat. So these are the 5 vritas that is to be taken by a householder. Anuvratas they are called. Not so much of severity that of the mahavratas. 3 merit vows, the gunavratas taken by the householder. Dikvrata, limited area of activity vow. Then bhoga, upabhoga vrata, limited use of consumable and non-consumable. Then the 4 disciplinary vows, shiksha vratas, samyak vrata, meditation vow of limited duration. Then activity of vow of limiting space, that is deshavachika vrata. Then ascetics life of limited duration, pausada vrata. And then the limited charity vow, Atiti Sambhavika Vrata. So this, in comparison to Mahavrata, it is little lower, and that's what they are asked to practice. That's for the householder. Observation of 12 vows. That is the 5 anuvratas and the rest. That means 5 plus 5, 10 or 7. 7 of, that is 3 gunavratas and shiksha vratas. 4 of the shiksha vratas, that is 7. 7 plus 5, 12. 12 vows to be performed or taken by the householder. And in its seriousness, it is a little less in comparison to that of the monks and the nuns. Then what about the Jain gods? So there is going to be a difference here also with regard to the understanding of the 2 groups. Jainism believes that universe and all its substances are entities are eternal. So the universe where it has, there is no creator God as other religions would say. It has no beginning or end with respect to time. So the Jain's concept of the universe, Jainism believes that the universe and all its substances or entities are eternal. So they come from eternity. It has no beginning or end with respect to time. There is no need for someone to create or manage the affairs of the universe. Universe is on its own accord by its own cosmic laws. Hence, Jainism does not believe in a God as creator, survivor, a destroyer of the universe. So what is the concept of the universe? Where did it come from? How does it exist? Or who is behind it? So for Jainism, there is no question about that. It is eternal. From time immemorial it is there. And it doesn't require a creator. So they do not accept the fact of a creator God who sustains it, or a destroyer of the universe, or a creator, survivor, or a survivor or a destroyer. That doesn't come into their philosophy. So Jainism believes that the universe is all, and all substance and entities are eternal. It has no beginning and end. That's what. So they do not consider the question of who has created the universe. Whereas other religion, they will dwell a lot on that. Who is behind it? Who is behind this intelligent way of making things as such? So that is one of the proof that is taken for the existence of God. But here for Jainism, the very aspect of that there is evil is existing, that is, it's enough for them to discredit or tell that there is no God, no creator God for them. So they do not agree on that. However, Jainism does believe in God when a living being destroys all his karmas. He possesses perfect knowledge, vision, power, and bliss. Then he is considered as a God, a person worthy of worship. He becomes omniscient and omnipotent. This living being is a God of Jain religion. Hence, Jains do not believe in one God. God in Jain religion are innumerable, and the number is continuously increasing as more living beings can or attain liberation. Every living being has the potential to become God of the Jain religion. So the concept of God in Jain religion is quite different from that of other religion. So we have said that they do not believe in the creator God, but do they have any God? Yes. When a living person destroys all his karmas, he possesses perfect knowledge, vision, power, and bliss. So these are the gods then. They are going to be gods. So one who destroys all his karmas, he possesses perfect knowledge, vision, power, and bliss. So this is somehow curtailed in life due to the karma or your avidya, and therefore you don't have the perfect knowledge or bliss or power and the vision. So there is curtailment. So when that veil is removed and when you are able to have the perfect vision, power, bliss and knowledge, then you are worshipped as a God, or he becomes omniscient and omnipotent. This living being is a God in Jain religion. Hence, Jains do not believe in one God but many. God in Jain religion are innumerable, and the number is continuously increasing as more and more living beings attain liberation. So every living being that has attained liberation is a God in Jainism. So every living being has a potential to become a God in the Jain religion. And when do you become a God in Jain religion? When you are able to remove all the karmas and you have the perfect knowledge, vision, power and bliss. Then you attain that position of a Jain God. While traveling on the path of spiritual progress, a person destroys all 8 types of his karmas in the following sequence. So the question is that what is the path that lead or keep you to destroy all the karmas? First is Mohiniya, that is a delusion which you have to destroy. The Jnana Varnaniya, that is knowledge. Darshana Varnaniya, vision. And the Antriya, that is natural qualities, all three together. That is the way of destroying. That is the path of progress which one is going to make. First, Mohiniya, delusion, then Jnana Varniniya, knowledge, Darshana Varniniya, vision, and Antriya, natural qualities, all three together. Lastly, the remaining four, namely Nama, that is body, Ayu, life and span, Gotra, special standing, and Vedaniya, pleasure and pain of the body. He then attains liberation. So in the path of perfection, when you are able to really overcome, that is, while traveling on the path of spiritual progress, a person destroys all 8 types of his karmas. Then this earth that is mentioned here, that is how he destroys that. The first, the Mohiniya, then Jnana Varniniya, Darshana Varniniya, and Antariya, natural qualities, and all this together with the lastly the remaining 4, Nama, Ayu, that is Nama is the body, Ayu is the lifespan, Gotra, special standing, and then Vedaniya, pleasure and pain of the body. He then attains liberation. So the path of liberation visualized in Jainism is quite different. The first 4 karmas are called Gati karmas because they obscure the natural qualities of the soul. The last 4 karmas are known as the Agati karmas because they are related to the body and soul. Gati, Agati. That is, once a person destroys all Gati karmas, automatically he will destroy all his Agati karmas at the end of this present life. No fallback can occur. So once you are in the state of bliss, then no more of coming back. A person who destroys all 8 types of karmas are called Siddha. A person who destroys only 4 Gati karmas are called Arhyanta or Tirthangara, Jina, etc. Both Arhyants and Siddhas are classified as gods in Jainism. So that is the God concept in Jainism. Who are the gods? How do you attain to that level of attaining freedom, and who becomes Jain gods? So they do not have the concept as like the other religion has got, a creator god or a god who preserves and destroys, and that's annihilation and all that. It is not. For them, the universe is eternal. So from time immemorial it is there, it's going to be there. And then universe is run on its own accord by its own cosmic laws. So there is no need of another creator God to be there taking care of that. Then the concept of God in Jainism is different. The concept of God is the living person who is on the path of attainment of the liberation. They are, or the Jains, we can say that Tirthankaras and Siddhas, or the Arhyants and Tirthankaras, they are called the Jain gods in the religion.